Have you ever looked into a mirror and suddenly realized you do not recognize the person looking back at you? There is a strange kind of heartbreak in realizing that you have built an entire life around making others happy, only to find yourself completely empty. You spent years saying yes when your soul screamed no. You became the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who never asks for too much. You carefully molded yourself to fit perfectly into the spaces other people left behind, quietly shrinking your own needs so that everyone else could feel comfortable. But what happens when you play a role for so long that you forget who you were before the performance began? Most people do not realize that the deepest exhaustion does not come from a lack of sleep. It comes from the heavy labor of pretending. If you have ever felt hollow, anxious, deeply tired, or invisible within your own life, this is for you. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you see your own worth forever. 1. The mirror of the lost self. What if the harder you try to keep the peace outside of you, the more you wage war against your own spirit? Here is the truth few people want to face. The heavy fatigue you carry is not because you are doing too much. It is because you are being too little of yourself. You have slowly traded your authenticity for temporary harmony. In the process, you tied your entire value to how useful you are to others. You became the endlessly giving partner, the employee who never complains, the friend who is always strong. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that attachment causes suffering. We usually think of attachment as clinging to money, physical possessions, or even other people. But one of the most painful, quiet attachments is clinging to an identity that is not truly yours. You have attached your self-worth to temporary roles. You have built a home on the shifting sands of other people's approval. And when their approval shifts, your entire sense of self collapses. Imagine a river flowing down a mountain. As it moves, it encounters large stones, fallen trees, and deep valleys. To avoid friction, the river constantly changes its path to flow around every single obstacle. It splits itself into 100 tiny, quiet streams just to accommodate the rough landscape. Over time, the water spreads so thin that the river begins to dry up completely. The river forgot that its true purpose was never to endlessly accommodate the stones. Its purpose was simply to flow with its own quiet, unified strength. Think about your own life. You have been bending around the heavy stones of expectations. You change your shape to avoid conflict at work. You silence your honest voice to keep a relationship from breaking. You smile and nod while you are quietly breaking inside. You have become so skilled at reading the weather of other people's emotions that you have completely lost touch with your own climate. Ask yourself right now, who are you when there is no one left to please? If every role you play was stripped away tomorrow, if you were no longer the caretaker, the achiever, the reliable one, the perfect friend, what would remain? It is okay if the answer is silence. Pause, breathe. Notice the quiet fear that arises when you ask that question. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity. Do not run from the emptiness. Just observe the space where your true self has been waiting for you to return. You are not the mask you wear. You are the silent, steady presence beneath it. But recognizing that you are lost is only the very first step on the journey home. Because before you can find yourself again, you must first understand the incredible weight of the armor you have been carrying for so long. And this is where the next truth begins. 2. The weight of the masks we wear. What if the effort required to hide your true self is exactly what is draining the life out of you? Here is the truth. The heaviest thing you will ever carry is not a physical burden. It is the invisible weight of an unlived life, wrapped inside a persona you created just to be accepted. You know this weight. It is the deep exhaustion that settles in your bones after a long day of smiling when you actually want to cry. It is the tightness in your chest when you agree to things you resent, just to keep someone else comfortable. Somewhere along the way, you learned that being agreeable made you safe. You learned that being helpful made you valuable. So, you crafted a beautiful mask of endless patience, unbothered strength, and quiet compliance. In Buddhist thought, much of our suffering stems from clinging to false identities. We build these heavy ego structures to protect ourselves from rejection. We tell ourselves a quiet story. If I am perfect, if I am always giving, if I never cause a problem, they will not leave me. But Buddhism reminds us that whatever we create out of fear will eventually become our prison. In clinging so tightly to this false self to please the world, you have abandoned the only person who truly needs you, yourself. Imagine an actor who is given a magnificent, heavy mask made of iron to wear for a play. The mask is striking, and the audience applauds the performance, but the play never ends. The actor walks off the stage, goes home, and sleeps with the iron mask still pressing into their skin. Years pass. The iron grows heavier. It becomes hard to breathe. The actor forgets what the wind feels like on their bare face. They are terrified to take it off, fearing the world will not love the tired, ordinary face hidden beneath it. This is what it feels like to live your life entirely for the approval of others. You are wearing iron in spaces that should feel like home. You wear it at family gatherings, where you swallow your honest opinions to keep the peace. You wear it with friends when you casually say, "I am fine," while carrying a silent storm inside. You wear it in your daily life, afraid that if you show your messy, authentic, human needs, you will become too much to handle. Think about your own life. Who are you protecting by carrying all this weight? What are you so desperately afraid will happen if you let the mask slip? Are you terrified they will leave, or are you terrified they will finally see you? Pause. Take a deep, quiet breath. Feel the physical tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your chest. That is the cost of holding the mask in place. Let the feeling rise without fighting it. Now, imagine your hands slowly reaching up, gently untying the heavy knot and setting the iron down on the floor. You do not have to perform right now. You are allowed to just breathe. But recognizing the weight of the mask is only part of the awakening. The deeper sorrow comes when we realize that the roles we have sacrificed so much to maintain are not meant to last forever. Because sooner or later, the stage changes. The audience leaves. And this is where the next truth begins. 3. The impermanence of the roles we play. What if the foundation you built your entire life upon was designed to eventually wash away? Here is the truth few people want to face. The deepest identity crises do not happen when we change. They happen when the world around us changes and the roles we defined ourselves by suddenly disappear overnight. You tied your entire sense of self to a title. The devoted partner, the irreplaceable employee, the constant caregiver, the loyal friend who is always there to fix the crisis. You poured your blood, sweat, and spirit into being exactly what that role demanded. But relationships end, companies downsize and move on, children grow up and leave the quiet house, friendships drift into silence. And when the role is suddenly stripped away, you are left staring at empty hands, desperately wondering, if I am not needed by them, then who am I? Buddhist wisdom teaches the profound truth of impermanence. Everything that arises in this world must eventually pass away. In Buddhist thought, the root of our heaviest suffering is taking what is temporary and trying to make it permanent. A role is simply a set of clothes you wear for a season of your life. But when you wear them for so long that you mistake the clothes for your true skin, taking them off feels like losing a piece of your soul. Imagine a beautiful sandcastle built dangerously close to the ocean. You spend days perfecting its walls, carving its towers, and defending it from the wind. You stand inside it and declare, "This is who I am." This is my home. But the ocean does what the ocean has always done. The tide rolls in. The water washes over the sand, gently but inevitably dissolving the rigid walls back into the flat, open beach. If you believe you are the sandcastle, the tide feels like an execution. But if you remember you are simply the ocean expressing itself for a moment, the tide is just a return to peace. Think about your own life. You have been building sandcastles out of temporary relationships and job titles. You sacrificed your own peace to hold a struggling partnership together, only to find yourself alone. You sacrificed your health for a career, only to be replaced on a random Tuesday. When the tide of life washed these roles away, you felt erased. You felt like your very existence had been cancelled. Ask yourself, what roles are you desperately trying to hold together right now? If the title you are most proud of was taken away from you tomorrow, what quiet value would you still hold? Are you afraid that without your usefulness to others, you are entirely empty? Pause, breathe, feel your feet resting firmly on the floor. Remind yourself that you existed long before these roles were handed to you. You will exist long after they are gone. Let the fear of being nobody rise up and quietly watch it pass like a cloud drifting across a vast, open sky. Do not chase it. Do not fight it. You do not have to hold the sand together anymore. You can let the tide come, because true peace is never found in building a stronger, more permanent castle. It is found in realizing that your worth is not tied to the structure you built. But untangling your true self from the things you do for others is a painful, confusing path. It requires looking honestly at why you give so much in the first place. And this is where the next truth begins. 4. The difference between compassion and sacrifice. What if the kindness you are offering the world is actually a profound cruelty to yourself? Here is the truth few people want to face. You have confused self-abandonment with love. You believe that to be a good person, you must give until you are completely empty. You pour your life into fixing other people's problems. You absorb their heavy sadness. You carry burdens that were never yours to lift. You secretly think that saying no makes you unworthy. So you say yes. Yes to the draining conversations. Yes to the extra responsibilities. Yes to the people who only ever reach out when they need something from you. You have convinced yourself that abandoning your own needs is the ultimate proof of your kindness. Buddhist wisdom teaches the beautiful practice of deep compassion. But one of the most overlooked lessons of Buddhism is that true compassion is fundamentally broken if it does not include yourself. There is a vast difference between holding space for someone and setting yourself on fire just to keep them warm. Giving out of fear or out of a desperate need to be loved is not true generosity. It is a quiet attachment. It is a subtle way of trying to control how others see you, buying their approval with your own exhaustion. Imagine a single, steady candle resting in a quiet, dark room. It provides warmth and a gentle light to everything around it, simply by existing in its own quiet strength. Now imagine if that candle suddenly believed it had to melt faster, burn aggressively, and destroy itself, just to prove it cared about the shadows in the room. It flares up, pouring all of its wax onto the table, exhausting its wick in a matter of moments. Soon, there is nothing left but a cold, hard puddle in complete darkness. The candle did not help the darkness by destroying itself. True light simply shines. It never forces its own destruction. Think about your own life. How many times have you burned yourself down to the wick for someone who never even noticed you were melting? You stay awake for hours trying to fix a relationship that the other person is unwilling to work on. You agree to extra duties to be the perfect colleague, quietly drowning in invisible stress. You give away your free time, your silence, and your precious peace just to ensure no one is ever disappointed in you. Ask yourself right now, are you giving out of a quiet, overflowing love? Or are you giving because you are terrified of what they will think if you stop? What would happen if you finally decided that your own peace is just as sacred as the peace you so desperately give to everyone else? Pause, breathe, place a hand softly over your own heart. Feel the quiet, steady rhythm beneath your palm. That heartbeat belongs to you. It does not belong to the world. You are allowed to keep your warmth for yourself. You do not have to fix every broken thing you see. Let the guilt of saying no rise up in your mind, and gently watch it drift away like smoke in the wind. Because true kindness never demands the destruction of your own spirit. You are allowed to step back. But stepping back means you must be willing to face the empty space that follows. It means facing the very uncomfortable truth that not everyone will celebrate when you stop abandoning yourself. And this is where the next truth begins. 5. Sitting in the silence of disappointing others. What if the most terrifying thing you can do is also the most liberating? Here is the truth few people want to face. You cannot find yourself without risking the disappointment of others. When you have spent years being the endless giver, the people around you grow accustomed to your sacrifice. They love the version of you that never says no. They rely on the version of you that is always quietly available. But the moment you finally stop abandoning yourself, the moment you gently say, "I cannot do this anymore," the reaction is rarely applause. Often, it is a heavy, uncomfortable silence, or worse, it is anger. And in that silence, a crushing guilt washes over you. You feel like a bad person. You want to immediately apologize, step back into the old role, and fix it. Buddhist wisdom teaches us about the worldly winds: praise and blame, gain and loss, approval and disapproval. These are the winds that constantly blow through our lives. Buddhism reminds us that if your inner peace depends entirely on managing these winds, you will never be free. You will always be tossed back and forth by the changing moods of the people around you. Allowing someone to be disappointed in you is a profound act of non-attachment. It is the brave release of the illusion that you are responsible for controlling another person's emotional weather. Imagine a deep, ancient tree standing at the edge of a cliff. For years, the harsh wind has blown against it, expecting the tree to bend all the way to the ground in submission. But one day, the tree realizes its roots are deep, and it simply stands tall. The wind howls, it whips around the branches, furious that the tree is no longer bowing. But the tree does not fight the wind. It does not apologize for its own quiet strength. It does not shrink to make the wind feel more powerful. It simply stands in the quiet dignity of its own existence, letting the storm rage until it eventually passes. Think about your own life. You finally tell a family member you cannot carry their emotional burdens today, and they respond with cold distance. You tell a colleague you will not work late to cover their mistakes, and they treat you with silent frustration. The guilt rises up in your chest. You feel an intense, almost painful urge to reach out and make it right, to smooth over the friction, to sacrifice your own peace just to make their quiet anger go away. Ask yourself, is their disappointment truly your failure? Or is it simply the friction of your true shape finally taking up space in the world? What are you afraid will happen if you simply let them be upset? Pause. Breathe. Notice the desperate urge to fix the situation. Now, gently do nothing. Let the feeling of guilt rise without acting on it. Let the uncomfortable silence sit in the room. You do not need to rush in and fill it with apologies. Stop trying to manage their feelings. Let life meet you where you are, because surviving the disappointment of others is the only way to stop disappointing yourself. But as you finally stop pouring all of your life force into the empty cups of everyone else, a strange and quiet thing happens. You suddenly find yourself holding something you have not held in a very long time, and this is where the next truth begins. 6. Reclaiming the energy you gave away. What happens when the well finally runs dry? For years, you have been pouring water into everyone else's garden, silently hoping that in return, someone would eventually remember to water yours. But here is the truth few people want to face. When you make a habit of giving away your peace, people will simply make a habit of taking it. You are exhausted, and it is not the kind of tiredness that a long sleep or a quiet weekend can cure. It is a deep, quiet, spiritual exhaustion. You have spent so much time anticipating the needs, the moods, and the reactions of others that your own life force feels entirely depleted. You have given away your time to keep the peace. You have given away your voice to avoid conflict. You have given away your identity, piece by piece, believing that this endless sacrifice was the definition of love. But pleasing is not loving. Pleasing is a way of hiding. It is an exhausting attempt to control how others see you, so you do not have to face the fear of standing alone. Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us of the danger of this endless outward pouring. In Buddhist thought, true compassion can never exist without self-compassion. If you pour from an empty vessel, you are not offering water, you are offering dust. The path to inner peace requires us to recognize where our energy goes. The practice is not to build a massive, angry wall against the world, but to simply stop leaking your spirit into spaces that cannot hold it. Imagine a powerful river flowing down a mountain. For years, people living nearby have dug small, endless trenches along the banks, diverting the water to their own fields. The river allowed it, flowing willingly into every little trench, every demand, every open space. But eventually, the main riverbed turns to mud. The current weakens. The river forgets its own path to the sea, losing its power to hundreds of tiny, shallow streams. To reclaim its strength, the river does not need to destroy the fields. It simply must pull back its waters. It must close the artificial trenches and gather itself into a single, deep, powerful flow once again. Look at your own life. You are diverting your river. This is what happens when you say yes when every fiber of your being screams no. It is what happens when you endlessly absorb a friend's heavy emotions while your own mind is deeply fragile. You give away your energy just so a partner will not be upset, or so the world will not look disappointed. You are leaking the exact energy that is required to heal, to rebuild, and to discover who you actually are beneath the heavy masks you have worn. Ask yourself, where is your river leaking right now? Who or what is constantly drinking from your well without ever once refilling it? What are you so desperately afraid will happen if you finally gather your waters back? You do not have to fix everything today. Just begin here. Pause. Breathe. Feel the quiet center of your chest. This is your reserve. Today, try to pull your energy inward. When you feel that familiar, anxious urge to step in, to soothe, to manage someone else's emotional weather, stop. Let them handle their own storm. Do not divert your river. Stand at the edge of the water and simply let it flow back into you. Gathering your energy is not an act of selfishness. It is a profound act of spiritual survival. It is the only way to find out what remains when you are no longer defined by what you can do for others. But letting the energy return is only the beginning. Because once you finally have the strength to look clearly at yourself again, you must learn how to sit with the stranger you have become. And this is where the next truth begins. 7. Meeting the stranger within. What if the person you are most afraid to meet is the one living inside your own skin? When you finally stop pleasing others, when you gather your energy back and the noise of the world fades, a terrifying silence takes over. You look in the mirror and you do not recognize the eyes looking back at you. Here is the truth. For years, you have defined yourself by what you do for others. You were the peacemaker. You were the reliable one. You were the listener, the fixer, the anchor. These roles became your armor. But when those roles disappear, when a relationship ends, when a job shifts, when you finally say no, a profound emptiness arrives. Without a script to read, without an expectation to fulfill, you feel entirely lost. You feel like a stranger in your own life. Buddhist wisdom teaches that this feeling of emptiness is not a tragedy. It is an awakening. Buddhism reminds us that the self we often try so desperately to protect is built on illusions. We attach our identity to fleeting things, our jobs, our relationships, the opinions of our peers. But these are just changing conditions, not who we truly are. The pain of not recognizing yourself does not mean you are broken. It simply means the false layers are finally falling away. The discomfort you feel is not the loss of your true self, but the shedding of a heavy disguise. Imagine an old, sturdy house, completely covered in thick green vines. For years, everyone who walked by admired the vines. You spent all your time watering them, trimming them, making sure they looked perfect for the world. You started to believe that you were the vines. But one day, a storm comes and strips the leaves away. Or perhaps you simply choose to cut them down. Suddenly, the house stands bare. It looks strange. The walls are weathered. The windows are exposed. At first, you feel naked and vulnerable. But as the sun rises, light finally enters the dark rooms inside. The vines were never holding the house up. The stone foundation was there all along, waiting to breathe. Think about your own life. You have been wearing the vines for so long that you forgot the stone beneath. When you lose the title of partner or employee or the perfect friend, you panic. You rush to find new vines to cover the bare walls, seeking new validation, a new distraction, or a new person to please. But the rush to be known by others is exactly what keeps you a stranger to yourself. Ask yourself, who are you when no one needs anything from you? If you take away your job, your relationships, and your history, what is left in the quiet room of your mind? Are you willing to sit with that person without trying to fix them? Pause. Breathe. Do not rush to fill the silence. When the feeling of being lost arises, observe it without panicking. Let the stranger be there. Introduce yourself to the quietness of your own presence. You do not need to figure out who you are today. You simply need to stop running from who you are not. The stranger you meet in this silence is not an enemy. It is the original you, waiting patiently for you to return. But to fully embrace this return, you must learn how to construct a foundation that the world can never dismantle. And this is where the next truth begins. 8. Building a self that cannot be taken away. What if you could build a home within yourself, so strong that no storm could ever destroy it? Here is the truth. For years, you have been building your foundation on borrowed ground. You have constructed your sense of worth out of the opinions, reactions, and expectations of other people. When they smile, you feel safe. When they pull away, your entire world collapses. You have tied your value to your productivity, to your ability to keep a partner happy, or to how perfectly you can play a role. But roles disappear overnight. Jobs are lost. Relationships shift. People change their minds. When you build your identity on things entirely outside of your control, you are living in a house made of paper, waiting for the rain. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound reality of impermanence. Everything outside of us is in a constant state of flux. To attach our deepest sense of self to shifting, worldly conditions is the root of our suffering. Buddhism reminds us that true security is never found by controlling the external world, but by anchoring yourself in the quiet awareness that simply observes it. You are not your job title. You are not the praise you receive. You are not the rejection you endure. You are the silent space in which all these things come and go. Imagine two trees standing on the edge of a great cliff. The first tree grows rapidly, stretching its beautiful branches wide to catch the admiration of the sun, but its roots spread shallow across the loose topsoil. When the fierce autumn storms arrive and the heavy winds blow, it is quickly ripped from the earth. The second tree grows slowly. Instead of spreading outward for attention, it pushes its roots deep into the dark, silent rock beneath. It may not look as spectacular from the outside, but when the winds howl and the rain pounds against the cliff, it merely bends. Its strength is not in its visible branches. Its strength is in its unseen depths. Think about your own life. How much of your energy goes into making your branches look perfect for the world? How often do you panic when the winds of criticism, failure, or disappointment blow because you secretly know your roots are shallow? You cannot control the weather of your life. You cannot force people to stay, and you cannot guarantee that your circumstances will never change. But you can choose where you plant your roots. Ask yourself, what is your worth tied to right now? Are your roots anchored in the shifting sand of someone else's approval? What would happen if you decided that your value existed simply because you breathe? Pause. Breathe. Feel the quiet ground beneath your feet. Stop looking outward for permission to exist. When the fear of not being enough rises, let it pass like wind through the leaves. Do not follow it. You are the tree. You are not the wind. Building a self that cannot be taken away means realizing you were never empty to begin with. But to fully inhabit this indestructible space, you must take one final step. You must forgive the journey that brought you here. And this is where the final truth begins. 9. Arriving back home to you. What if the person you have been desperately searching for in everyone else's eyes was waiting for you all along? We return to where this journey began. You started this path feeling completely exhausted, hollowed out by years of giving yourself away. You looked into the mirror and saw a stranger, worn down by an endless cycle of pleasing, performing, and abandoning your own needs to keep the peace. You were terrified that if you stopped being useful, if the roles you played simply vanished overnight, you would cease to exist. You gave away your energy. You carried the weight of 1,000 masks. But here is the final truth. The pain of not recognizing yourself was never a punishment. It was an invitation. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that true freedom is found not in becoming someone new, but in remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. The deepest lesson of non-attachment is not about pushing people away or becoming cold to the world. It is about dropping the heavy burden of trying to be everything for everyone. It is the profound realization that your true nature, your quiet, observing mind, can never be lost, no matter what happens around you. Imagine a weary traveler who has walked for years across freezing, rough terrain. Every night, he knocks on the doors of strangers, begging for a place to rest, hoping someone will offer him warmth. Sometimes he is let in, but eventually he is always asked to leave. Sometimes the doors remain locked. He grows more and more exhausted, convinced he is destined to wander in the cold forever, until one night, too tired to take another step, he simply stops. He sits in the snow under the vast, silent sky. He closes his eyes, and as he breathes, he suddenly feels a deep, radiating heat from within. The warmth he had been begging for from strangers was a fire burning quietly inside his own chest the entire time. He was carrying his own sanctuary. Think about your own life. Every time you twisted yourself into knots to please a partner, every time you silenced your own voice to avoid disappointing a friend, every time you panicked over a changing role, You were that exhausted traveler. You were knocking on closed doors, asking the outside world to give you the safety that only you can provide for yourself. Ask yourself, are you ready to stop running? Can you finally forgive the version of yourself that believed love had to be earned through endless sacrifice? Pause. Breathe. Place a hand over your heart. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. You do not need a role to be worthy. You do not need to manage the emotions of the world to justify your existence. You are allowed to take up space simply because you are here. The stranger in the mirror is a stranger no longer. It is simply you, returning from a very long and tiring journey. The roles will always come and go. The world will continue its endless, noisy shifting, but you no longer have to build your house in the wind. You have found the quiet center. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. You can let go now.